an amazing instrument. It has developed into an incredible voice in today's music. So many types of guitars, so many styles of playing, all sorts of gear. How does one make their voice be heard as a guitarist? My name is Jeff Floro, and welcome to All About Guitar, where we talk tone, we talk technique, we talk gear. Where we discover how we can become better musicians in a world of constantly changing technologies. Where we take a good look at everything guitar, and sometimes not exactly guitar, but just as important, so we can be more successful as a musician in today's music scene. So sit back and relax, and let's explore all about guitar. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to All About Guitar. We have a great show for you tonight. My guest is Rob Garland, and quite an interesting person. Does a lot of things, and he's a perfect example also, too, of wearing many hats just in this industry, which is kind of a necessity now more than it ever was. And I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you,
I'm
Jeff.
going to go a little bit into your background. He's, besides being a session guitarist and playing with some interesting people, whose phone is on, that's probably mine. There.
Is it?
Hey. Sorry, our phones, we forgot to mute the volume.
It is muted.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
No, you should be okay now.
Okay.
Anyway, besides being a session player, he's also an author. He's written some books on guitar, and he's currently one of the faculty staff at Musicians Institute. So I just want to welcome you. It's really an honor to have you here. And let's go back to the beginning, because you hail from England, right?
Yes, from a little seaside town in the southeast called Margate.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. Very cool. Now, so tell us a little bit of your background, how you got into guitar, because it's rare that we have people, your influences must have been very interesting, because in England, when you were a kid, there was a lot of stuff happening.
Yeah, it's funny, though, because when I was getting into guitar, I started playing guitar when I was about 14. Started really listening to music seriously and just loving it, before that. But at the time, the music that was really on the radio in England was the pop music of the day, Tears for Fears, Duran Duran, that kind of stuff, which, funnily enough, later on I came to kind of appreciate, as some well-crafted pop music. But at the time, I had this friend and I were kind of like little metalheads in the south of England, and we would listen to this late night radio show on BBC Radio 1. And it was called the Friday Rock Show. It was a really, really infamous show, and with Tommy Vance, the DJ. And he would play all the American rock and the British rock, what you would call kind of hard rock or metal or whatever like that. And that's the first time we were exposed to, it sounds funny to say it, but bands like Van Halen were almost underground to us.
Really?
Yeah, because you wouldn't hear that on the pop radio of the day there, and they didn't have separate radio stations for styles then, so that was really the only show that would play that stuff.
Wow, it's hard to believe that
it is,
Van Halen wasn't played on the radio.
I mean, it was kind of played on the radio a little later that, but in the early days there, that was
Right.
kind of us hearing it. And so my first sort of guitar heroes were very rock-based players. Gary Moore was my favorite player growing up. I loved Jeff Beck. And once I got into the Gary Moores and the Van Halens and, those kind of guys, then I would go on a journey back. Where did they get influenced by? And then you have those sort of middle people like Clapton and Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then I go back beyond that and get into Freddie King, and the blues was a big part of it, and I was a huge Ritchie Blackmore fan, still am, Hendrix, all the regular guys you'd expect. But to start with, it was the rock guitarists were really getting me.
Yeah, so you were getting most of the guys from the 70s, most of the 70s. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and it's funny, and that's great. Because that's one thing, when you listen to some of these guys that are iconic guitar players like Eddie, it's good to go and look at where they came from.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, Eddie was very influenced by Clapton.
Yeah.
And but I mean, it's interesting to see where they got their inspiration.
Definitely, yeah, yeah. And there are certain pivotal points. Like I remember hearing the outro to Sultans of Swing, the Dire Straits, and that was, I think, before I started playing guitar, and also the intro to Voodoo Child when Jimmy would bend that note and have the pickup switch go. Oh, to this day, I was so thrilled by that. I still am, and so those things it was more about a feeling, evoking a feeling early on like that. So it was all of that kind of stuff, and I started playing in bands very young, like almost a couple of years after starting playing.
So there was a music scene at your.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which is
well, when we would travel, we would go to London and we would go to various other cities and play and do the college circuit and all that kind of thing. So I started playing in lots of bands early on, and then I had kind of a pivotal moment where I heard Steve Lukather, and Steve Lukather really changed my whole way of thinking about the guitar. And with Steve Lukather, that led me to Larry Carlton, Lee Rentnow, George Benson, Wes Montgomery, and all of that, But it was Lukather that was a pivotal one for me, hearing the early Toto records and just the fact that, you can go beyond this pentatonic vocabulary, this rock and roll vocabulary, and have cool jazz harmony, even though, it was only a slight bit of it in some of the Toto records.
Right.
He was still in that direction, but have that rock energy. And so to this day, that's kind of been my direction, if you like, and then of course later that led into, the Alan Holdsworths and all those kind of guys.
Yeah, well, so. He was also one of the guys that just knew his tone.
Oh God,
I mean, all those albums, they just each one, the sound of the guitars were always amazing.
Yeah,
he's still even today. He does a lot of. He just has the tone. Whether he was doing sessions for other people, and he's done a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
If you haven't read it, read his biography. It's amazing, some of the stuff that he did. It's just, but he knew that tone, so that was interesting. So now, when you were playing in these bands and stuff, what were you using back then?
Back then, I was using primarily Fender Strats. I was always a Strat guy right from the start, and I would have friends that would have Les Pauls and Epiphones and what have you, and I would play them, and I would just be like, oh no, this doesn't work for me. This is not good. There was something. I was playing in a lot of funk bands, and a lot of just a lot of the playing didn't seem to. I just can't be funky on a Les Paul for some reason. Whereas on a Strat, I always could. Now, not to say there aren't, because Jeff Beck and Gary Moore, all these guys were using Les Pauls, but it wasn't for me. I was a Strat guy, and I was using. It's funny actually. The first ever tube amps that I had, or Valve as we would say, were actually made by Crate, which is bizarre because I then ended up living in St. Louis where they made Crate amps, but then I switched to Marshalls in the UK, so I was using Marshalls for a long time.
Oh, okay. I'm surprised. When you were doing the funk stuff, you were using the Marshalls or the Crate?
Yeah, I was using the Marshalls, which isn't ideal for it. I mean, later on, I probably went about 10 years with nothing but Fender Vibroluxes, and I just ran everything clean.
For the funk stuff.
But in the early days, it was the Marshalls.
Guys out here were using Supers with the 410s.
Right. Which has kind of made a comeback, hasn't it? I'm seeing some of the guys with the Supers again now.
Right.
So,
well, with the 10s, it stays out of the way of the bass. But you also it's in a different spot than like horns. If you're using horns.
Right.
So a lot of guys that were playing in bands at the time, when I was playing, there were a lot of bands that were doing Chicago and Blood, Sweat and Tears.
Sure.
Those guys would use the Supers, and it just cut that with a Strat and a phase shifter, and you were there.
Yeah.
It just had that sound. That was
definitely.
Like sound.
Yeah.
That's cool. So so it was Crate and Marshall. Interesting.
Yeah, it's funny, right? And then later on, because I would do a lot of cover gigs and just working gigs, I needed. That's when I started using more Fenders for a blank slate, and then I could build pedal boards and digital around that. So that was depending on what the gigs were,
Right, but that was still in England.
But some of that was in England. Yeah, I started, and then when I came to America, I continued with the Fender stuff for a while.
Because I know in England at that time, Fenders were really pricey.
Well, they were not a little later on. They were when I was, I'm now getting to like mid 90s and stuff. They weren't so bad then. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. No, that's pretty good. Now, do you still use amps primarily when you're gigging? Now he's in two bands, and we're going to listen to some clips in a minute. One of them is the Rob Garland's Eclectic Trio.
That's right. Yeah.
And then Catatonic, which is a quartet or quintet?
Quintet now.
Quintet. Yeah. And so, are you using amps?
Yeah, I use my Bogner for all of that. I have a Bogner Shiva 20th anniversary, and it's a EL34 amp, and you would think, particularly for Catatonic, which is kind of like a jazz funk band, you would think, again, if you're going to use a clean sound, wouldn't you want a Fender? But I went down to the Bogner factory and I A-B'd 6L6 version with the KT88 and the EL34, and the EL34 was the most shimmery of those, which I wouldn't have thought, but there you go,
I've heard people say that they can get a good glassy sound.
It's really glassy,
out of it.
yeah. So I use that as my main amp. I used Mezzo Boogies for a while as well. Lone Star Deluxe. I had an endorsement with them, so I had a couple of their amps for a while. But mostly now I use the Bogner for everything.
Okay. In the studio, do you use any other?
In the studio, I'll use Fender Deluxe as well, and my Mezzo Boogie sometimes as well, and the Bogner. And then if I'm using someone else's studio, it might see what they have as well. But those are my three primary amps.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you're getting all the sounds. Now, let me ask you this: the Bogner, compared to what you were using with the Marshall, how would you describe the Bogner compared to a Marshall?
I think something about, and bear in mind, the Marshalls I was using back in England were like the JTM series and stuff, so they weren't, the most exciting Marshalls, So they were.
Well, the JTMs were good.
They were good for there, but I don't know. Like now, it seems like with the Bogner, there's just more of a presence. The word I would use would be presence. With the gain, there's a presence to it that makes it just feel, like it doesn't sound thin in any way. Not that Marshalls sound thin, but it might.
It just depends on how you set it up.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've been dialing back the gain more as well, which is another thing that the older you get, you realize you can get more sustain with less gain, right? I think it was.
I don't know. I still like to crank it up.
I think it was when they came out with those isolated guitar tracks. You remember that? Like you would suddenly hear AC/DC or Richie Blackmore, and you go, "Wow, there's not that much gain on that, is there?" So that was
that's true. Now, did you notice when you were in England using the Marshalls?
Yeah.
Was there? Now, this is a debate that this is a little bit of a tangent, but I'm curious about this. Did you notice the difference between the 220 and the 110? Did it change the sound of the amps?
It's hard. It's hard for me to really remember that because it was such a long time ago I was using the Marshalls. I do have a real fondness for the warmth of the Marshall over there, and I don't think the ones I played over here is sounding quite as warm. So, but that could just be nostalgia,
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't say for sure because it was. I was using.
Because there's a debate. I know that it's a different transformer,
right?
So it's gonna change the sound.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys said the 220 sound, even bringing the 220s and down converting them.
Yeah.
It sounds better.
I could see it. I could definitely see it.
Now, before we play some of the clips, which I want to get into, let's talk a little bit now. You're over at. Let's talk a little bit about your teaching and you've written some books.
Well, yeah, just a book for Cherry Lane, but the book for Cherry Lane was really what got me the job with TrueFire. And with TrueFire, I've done about 12 years of work with them. Everything from hosting their YouTube live lessons to publishing courses with them, filming courses with them, running a channel. I ran a classroom for 10 years. And I write instructional articles for RIFF Journal, which is their magazine and stuff. So I do a lot of work with them. And they're based out of St. Petersburg in Florida. So I fly down there and we shoot in their studio down there. So that's been a big part of it because I still have a lot of private students. And I teach, here from my home studio as well. So I do that, and I do TrueFire, and I do MI. And I also have done, a bunch of session stuff and everything. And like what you were saying at the start, in order to be a working musician these days, and I decided when I was at college, right, this is what I'm going to do. You have to diversify. There is no way around it, and that could mean playing 200 wedding gigs a year, and I've done that, and it can mean, it can mean going out on the road, and I've done that. I toured with a blues band through the Midwest and the South, and got to see the real America, so I've done that as well. But what's best for my health is probably the teaching, because when you're doing those 10 to 2 gigs and you do 200 a year, they start to weigh you down.
But that's a lot of, to do all those videos and stuff for TrueFire and the RIFF Journal, and still do MI. That's a lot of work. I don't see how you have time to play anything.
Well, I'm only at MI one full day. So, and then I come in and sub on some other days and stuff. And the True Fire stuff, it's like, I'm going to go into a phase in November where I'll be hard, putting a lot of time into writing 2 more courses, go back January, shoot those, then those are done, So it's all, I'm a project practicer with the bands as well. Like, my trio hasn't played for a while, but we have a gig coming up. So now I'm thinking about that music, it's so everything I do is project based, But yeah, it's a juggling act. I mean, it's after I put my daughter to bed, I go back and play, so it's what you do,
So how do you like working with the Musicians Institute?
Oh, I love it.
That's a unique place. I mean,
I love it, and I think, I've made a pretty good start there, and I think I'm going to be there for a long time. I just get that feeling, and, I was reading about GIT in the guitar magazines when I was a kid in England. It seemed like a different universe, it's like, I really did. And so it's a thrill, and you go in the staff room and you get some great stories about the old days and everything like that, which is fantastic.
You do have an unusually gifted faculty. There's
exactly,
a lot of guys,
exactly, yeah,
a lot of major players.
Yeah, it's great, and I really, and I think the students are great as well. I mean, a lot of them are there for the right reasons and really work, which is great. So yeah, I find it a very inspirational place to be, because when I'm, a student will come into my open counseling and they'll ask me something about, one of the levels, because the curriculum's split into levels, and they'll say, what about this? And I'll go, yeah, okay. And then I'll teach him that, and I'll think, man, I've really got to like work on that to make sure I know, that, because that's the top level stuff, so it keeps me practicing for sure.
Yes, Now, let's talk a little. You are always using Strats, but because I want to show this guitar, then I'm going to start playing some of the clips.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about how you got to exotic, and from Strats to exotic, which is...
Yeah, well, funnily enough, over the years, I started doing things to all my Strats. I would take the string tree off, I would change the pickups, I would reset the tremolo.
Now, why would you take the string tree?
Because I would often hear that little sound, and it would go out of tune,
Oh, okay.
and so I would make all these little adjustments to my Fenders over the years, and then it sort of occurred to me that there were people out there doing this work for me, and I didn't have to keep taking parts out my guitars. I was always changing the nut.
Did you find any, without the string trees, did you notice any difference in sustain? Or
I did, actually. Yeah, no, it was fine. Yeah,
it
didn't make any difference at all, as far as I could tell. Yeah,
okay, because that's the main purpose of that, was basically to
supposedly, but I never had any issues with it. So anyway, so I would do all this work to these guitars, and then I started looking around into some of these other builders, and I went through a few different phases. I had a Tom Anderson, I had a Suhr, which is for sale. I had a Music Man, which being a big Steve Lukather fan, I tried that guitar, but the scale was all wrong for me. I felt like a giant on it, So, but yeah, and then I went to see Scott from MI, Scott Henderson, at NAMM, and while I was at Exotic, they just started launching these guitars, because they were primarily known for the pedals, And so I picked one of these up, and I went, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I really like that, And then I made an appointment to go down to the factory, and we built the first one for me. And the first one I have is a pink one, and it's number 17, so it's one of the real early ones they made. I took it back there a few weeks ago, actually, when I was taking this one in, and they were like, oh, it's so different. It was... and then this one, you'll laugh, but this one has the serial number 666. So this is
the evil guitar.
This is the Blue Devil here.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm expecting my playing to improve a lot with that. With that deal I've made, but
that's right.
I haven't seen it yet. But so it's older, and then it has the flamed maple neck, which the main thing about unplugged, it really resonates. You
can hear it.
Yeah, you really can. It's almost like an acoustic.
And he's got the, this is the roasted maple.
Yeah, flame roasted maple.
Really beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really pretty. And then these are Exotic's raw vintage pickups, the 60, and these are their standard Strat pickups. So
play a little bit with it.
Yeah.
Now we're not using his standard setup. He's using my little Marshall, and I'm using the Solo Dallas, the Storm, for him for a little bit of a boost.
So that's the humbucker. And then like for a cleaner kind of. I know it's not going to be super clean on this little amp, but you know, it has that nice bluesy kind of tone. You know, so yeah, it's nice range of tones, I think, from it. You know, and in between. You know, it gets kind of a nice.
Now, to give justice to Exotic, it's hissy in here, but you have to understand he's right under fluorescent lights, so
Plus, we have this little compressor. So,
but that's part of it. These guitars are usually because Jeffrey Marshall was on with his, and they're really nice. Yeah. They're really nice. But it gets how's the sustain? Go ahead. And
the sustain is great.
Got a nice sound. Now that's the humbucker, and you don't have a splitter.
No,
it's just straight humbucker with the two.
With the two singles. Yeah.
It's a great sounding guitar. Okay, well listen, let's take a listen. I'm going to go ahead and play something from the Eclectic Trio. Mm-hmm. This is called, and correct me if I have it wrong.
Sure.
It's MM Swing.
That's correct. Yeah.
MM Swing. So take a listen to this. And then I'm going to bring your fader down so the hiss is down.
Yep.
And then take a listen to this, and we're going to talk a little bit what he did. This is kind of an interesting song. So I assume most of that was the Exotic.
It was the pink one.
The pink one. It's got a great talent. That's a great sound.
Yeah.
And I love the Univibe.
Great.
But I like the way you answer. Let's talk a little bit about that. So you have the main theme.
So the main theme is like and then there's those little fills. And
I
things
love
like
the
that,
way you answer with the other guitars.
Right.
It's just out there.
It is a little out there. Yeah. So that main theme, that's actually taken from the melodic minor scale, which is why I called it MM Swing. So that was my little nerdy joke to myself. And then for that B section with the Univibe, I'm just going like. But with the Univibe, when you play that, and when you get these, you get those overtones, which because of that pulsating Univibe sound, you know, it gives you those great overtones on it. So the dissonance works, So and live, that's really fun because it really it really you really feel
I
it
can
moving.
imagine.
You know.
Now, what was the amp you were using on that?
That was actually, I'm pretty sure that I have to think about that. I think that was the Lone Star Deluxe, the Mezzo Boogie, because that was right before I got the Bogner, so that would have been the Mezzo Boogie.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Lone Star, and so you're using the same guitar for both parts. Pink Strat?
Yeah, I think I played the pink Strat, and I think I added the clean chords underneath them with a different pickup selector. But yeah, it was all the
same
pink
guitar,
Strat,
same
guitar.
amp.
Yeah, same amp.
Well, the Lone Star can get pretty clean too. It gets it gets a nice sound.
Yeah, it gets nice. And that didn't need to be super clean for that. You know, that could have a little bit. That could have a little bit of,
right.
of sort of dirty clean, so that worked fine.
And then that is that a head with a cabinet, or did you use?
No, that's a combo. That one.
That's a combo.
Yeah,
What is it? A 112?
It is, and then I had a extension cab made, another 112.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's in there? Just a Celestian?
Yeah, they're what do they call them? It's their sort of anniversary Celestian, whatever that's called. I forget what it was called.
The greenback?
Yeah, it might be the greenback.
With the 30 watt. The 30 watt greenback.
That's what's in the Bogner actually, is the 30 watt greenbacks.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think it's something else in the Mezzo Boogie. I don't remember.
The gold?
The gold. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's 60.
Yeah. Okay.
They're a little heavier, but it's the all Nico.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got that nice sound. It's got a really good sound.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So tell us a little bit about the Eclectic Trio.
So
the guys and then what you're trying to do with that group.
Sure. So I met the drummer that's in that group, Carl Thompson. He and I both worked at a music school in Santa Monica when I first moved to LA, and we thought it would be fun. He's also English, so that was immediate trouble. But we thought it would be fun to put something together. And then he'd played previously with the bass player Austin Underhill, and it turns out that Austin went to MI, and his very good friend and roommate at MI is Kenny from Exotic. So all these like people, everybody knows each other in this LA scene. I didn't know this, you know. So later on we found out everybody knows each other. Anyway, so we got together to play with those guys, and we had a little sort of a residency gig over at Trip in Santa Monica. We did every Sunday, first Sunday of the month or something like that for a few months, and it was a really, really fun gig. And I wrote a bunch of songs. We picked a couple, because at that point we didn't have a lot of material, so we picked a few standards, and we just kind of jammed, and it was really, really fun, and we've been playing ever since. That was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and and then we've done a few recordings. You know, the thing with the band is, though, all three of us are really busy, so we don't play very often. You know, like I think the last time we played was about 6-7 months ago. So this gig coming up in September will be exciting for us, and it's just everyone's just really busy doing other things. So the band, the two bands I work with are very different. Catatonic has a very regular rehearsal schedule. This band does not. This band, we'll do one rehearsal and we'll go and we'll play the gig, and there'll be a lot of improv.
How do you describe the difference in music between Catatonic and...
The trio is more rock based and more kind of, it has a rock energy to it. It still has some funk and jazz moments, but and also I sing in the trio, and Catatonics at the moment is all instrumental, although that might change. But
so Catatonic is this more what,
jazz,
funk or
funk kind of, yeah.
Okay.
And both bands do original music. The trio does now all original music. Catatonic does about 60% original music. So I like that. I like to do original stuff. I've played so many cover gigs. I never really feel the need to do that again. So. But yeah, the energy of the trios is really important. I think it has a certain, there's a certain fly by the seat of the pants kind of feeling about it.
It's great. It's a lot. I like the energy and I like the dissonance. It's kind of prog in a way. Yeah,
and I actually love prog too. I mean, like I'm a big Steven Wilson fan. If you know Steven Wilson, and all the old prog bands, of course. And I did a album and a bunch of gigs with a prog band a few years ago as well. So I like that style of music a lot.
No, I mean some of the chords that you're using in that last thing remind me a lot of Fripp.
Oh sure, yeah.
He would just do stuff like that.
Master of dissonance. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna play Seven Voices.
Okay.
And this is another one with the trio. So take a listen to this. It's and we'll talk a little more what you did here. good place to
Good
cut.
edit, yeah. Really good edit.
I can feel the Halsworth vibe.
That is
in
a very Halsworthy one, isn't it? Yeah.
But I love the way you're getting that sustain. You're getting that real like liquid sound. It's really a smooth sound. So how did you do that?
I think on this one I used a combination. I have a feeling I used the Pinnacle, the Wampler Pinnacle on this for extra sustain. You know, because I was experimenting with different pedals at that point. And so that was probably run through the Fender, clean Fender with that Pinnacle in it, actually. Because I think I tried tracking this with the Mesa Boogie, and it wasn't quite what I was looking for, because I wanted that, you know, Halsworth it's quite saturated, but it's still kind of, you know, clear.
Right. Now, are you playing with fingers, or is that a pick?
No, it's all pick as well. But
I mean, like some of the notes.
Some of the notes.
Attack,
Yes.
How do you get out with...
Yeah, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of hammer-ons and stuff in it, and then a lot of pickup. A lot of pickup switching going on.
But you get that. Yeah. You mute the attack of it.
Right.
Doing those long notes where you're milking.
Right, and when I use the that kind of thing, you know, that kind of thing, you know. So yeah, it's and I do a lot of the raking, you know, that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, I mean, I do use pick and fingers sometimes and not really realize I'm doing it, because I like that hybrid sound. So it's not impossible that for some of those I might have just like, you know, grabbed it with the finger. But for the most part, it's pick. You know.
Now, was that the pink one?
That was the pink one, yeah.
Because I'm noticing the tone that you're getting out of that. It's a really this one's pretty close.
Yeah.
Now, he's using my amp, and it's
if you were hearing it, if you were using the, you know, yeah, it's hard to approximate the same tone with a little amp.
But it's pretty close. But that there's that certain note, da da da.
Yeah.
That one there, it just rings.
Right.
It's just really sweet.
That. That one, right? Yeah.
And that's the neck pickup?
B section was definitely the neck pickup, yeah. So that's single coils. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just like it hits that one da 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 da.
Da. Yeah.
It just rings. It kind of takes off a little bit.
Yeah, and I have quite a heavy. You know, I'm not shy about.
You're hard.
Yeah, I'm not shy about.
I can hear
the guitar.
I can hear the pick against.
Right. Yeah, I'm not shy about it. I think that was the rock upbringing.
Now, the next thing I'm going to go ahead and play is the Catatonic piece.
Yes.
So, give us a little more story about the group and the people involved.
Yeah, so Catatonic got together. I just met a bass player and a drummer, and we talked about. They told me that they were trying to do this kind of like jazz group, but not really a traditional jazz group kind of thing. Well, that's what I heard that they said. You know, they may not have said that, but that's what it's become.
Yeah.
And then I have a friend who's a great saxophone player, Jeff Snow, and so the drummer Michael Salenza, bass player Chris Coulter, and then they wanted a sax player, and they tried some guys out, hadn't found the right guy, so I called him and I said, hey, do you have the time? And he's like, I think I do. So he came down and we all played together, and then we kept it as a 4-piece for a while, and then we decided it would be nice to add a keyboard player. I was particularly relieved because they had me playing for the stuff that wasn't original. We were doing like Chick Corea tunes and Yellowjackets tunes, and I'm covering all those piano parts on guitar, which is really challenging. I mean, I really enjoyed the challenge, but I was a bit relieved when the keyboard player came in. So we did a bunch of gigs without keyboards, and that was great, and it was fun. And then eventually we added a keyboard player, and now myself, the drummer, and the keyboard player are all bringing in our own tunes as well, so we've expanded the repertoire.
But I like the way the interaction between you and the sax.
Yeah, it's really fun. Yeah, and so for this song, for example, Nuada on the One, you know, I wrote it with the horn in mind. You know,
so you wrote specifically the lines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and my idea was, I want it to be like a James Brown funk meets a Celtic melody. That was because Nuada's a Celtic god.
I have to write that
down. That was now whether or not I accomplished that, I have no idea. But you know, and on the one is the reference to James Brown, you see, and then Nuada is the Celtic god's figure. You know, so that was the idea, and so. You know, the funk part was the main A section, and then for the B section, when I came up that little melody, You know, it has all these little pull-offs in it that to me sound Celtic. You know, you can almost see it being played on a more traditional instrument, you know.
Right.
So that was the idea, to sort of meld those two styles together.
Some of the stuff that you guys do, not on this tune, but
Yeah.
I've noticed. Do you ever try to? I don't know how do you pronounce the name of the instrument? It has a bladder. I'm spacing right now.
Well, like bagpipes.
Uilleann pipe.
Oh, the Uilleann pipe.
Is that you call it Uilleann pipe?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean not
because they do these weird little scales.
Yeah, true.
Is that hard to do on guitar?
I mean, I mean, sometimes you can do that thing that Joe Satriani does, and it kind of has that sound. You know, it's like it doesn't mean to, but it's sort of does. You know, and then you can bend behind the nut. So you can kind of approximate these
That's
things.
Cool. That is cool.
Well, it's just like doing those kind of things, you know, like where you slide out of, you know, which has an Eastern kind of quality to it. Yeah. And if you take a scale like, you know, do that and mix it all together.
They do those little turnarounds, and they're really cool.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, that stuff is in my mind, definitely. You know, so. I don't know.
All right, let's play it, and then we'll talk a little more. Okay. Here it is, a Nuada on the one. Here we go.
So that was the guitar solo that you picked out.
Right. The piece is about 5 minutes, and I just pulled the guitar part. But there's actually there's an improv, I think, with the sax.
Yeah. But what I mean is, that didn't have the Celtic bit in it. The Celtic bit's the other bit of the melody that we didn't hear. But it doesn't matter.
Okay. You know. No, I heard the guitar, and I wanted to show that because you're kind of answering yourself.
Yeah. Well, there's a funny story to why that is really answering myself as well. Because for this song, you know, being a working musician, not having much money for studio time, I recorded that from a gig. So that was Catatonic playing at Vitello's in Studio City. And I had the sound man just record the stems, you know, the basic tracks for me. And but I knew I wouldn't be able to live with the guitar solo because it's just not going to happen, you know. So I remixed the song at home in Logic, and then what I did was I kept half the guitar solo, and then I answered myself in the bits I didn't like. So it's not the most, you know. I mean, it's a little bit of cheating. I really should have left the whole thing, but there was some.
Well, no, but I mean, how did you keep the leakage out? Because there's a lot.
There is leakage in it actually, but it's you know, I managed to mix around it, and it was a painstaking. I mean, I went through every snare hit, every overhead, and you know, did this with the files. You know, it took a long time. You know, but when I get onto a project like that, I'm super obsessive and annoying, so I'll just do that no matter how long it takes. You know, I drive myself mad, you know, with it. But
now you were using what
that's
were you
the
using?
Bogner, by the way.
That's the Bogner Live.
Yeah, that's
and this guitar?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what was the guitar that you used in the studio to fill
Oh, same, yeah.
The same setup.
Yeah. And I tried to recreate the. I mean, it was tricky, getting the live sound. But it's and I switch pickups a lot when I solo anyway. So there's going to be some differences in. I'm not too worried about it. So I think it sounds fairly balanced. So,
No, well, but it kind of works because you're answering.
Exactly.
So that, to me, it was more like two guys.
Right.
Playing.
Exactly. It was the guy on the gig and then the guy that went home.
Yeah, well, now I know the story, but I mean, it sounded like you just overdub an answer to it, but it wasn't it didn't sound to me like a fix. It was like just an answer to it.
Yeah. And some of it I left in some, there's this one little thing where it's just kind of chromatic and is kind of weird, but that happened at the gig and I kind of liked it. So I left. I mean, strictly speaking, it's in the wrong key and it's out of tune, but I like
That's okay, but you're not afraid to just dive bomb on that whammy bar.
Right,
I love it.
Right.
Because sometimes there's nothing better to do than just go nuts on the whammy bar.
I actually broke the whammy bar in my pink guitar at the Baked Potato. I'm only the second guitarist in Exotic history to do that. But
to break it,
that they know.
So do you have a special one now? It's like stainless steel.
No, it's just I need to behave more with it.
But I love it because you'll be in the middle of a phrase and you'll be doing something and
right.
So that's cool. Yeah. Now let's take a listen to this song. It's called "Take These Blues."
Yeah,
and this is you singing, right? So. Is this just a session, or was this a group thing?
No, that was actually the drummer and bass player from a band I was in called Funkyard here in LA, and but that's a song I've been doing with my trio ever since. And this was an early one. This was like 2014, not early, but earlier. And that's I've done that in the trio probably every gig we've ever done. I really like doing this song live. Okay. And I do 3 or 4 vocal songs.
Now, I'm actually grabbing most of the guitar stuff, but you'll hear a little bit of them. I kept a little bit so you can hear them sing in there. So let me, this is Take These Blues. Here you go. The little things you throw in the effects.
I think I do them just for my amusement because I forget they're there, and then when I hear a song like 2 years later, it makes me smile. So that's good.
Now it's interesting. Now, and again, let me explain. I'm cutting a little segment of the bigger song.
Sure.
There's a couple of verses before that came in, and I noticed that. So you're doing this lead. It opens up with this lead, the clip that I'm playing.
Yeah.
And then there's this like middle section. That's a different guitar.
Oh, that's a. I think it was just a different pickup, actually. I'm not sure. I think it was just the neck pickup. It did
Really?
it did sound pretty different, didn't it? As opposed to... Yeah, I think it was a different pickup. But that was because that's when I first got to LA. So that was the Fender Vibrolux with the exotic AC Plus. So that was a completely different setup for that one.
Vibrolux.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
That's the tens.
Yes, that's
The two
right.
tens.
That's right. Yeah.
And then that was a exotic. What was the name of the
The
thing?
AC Plus, which is their old boost kind of pedal and
So
stuff.
that's like the AC30.
Right. And yes, but it also has like a heavier gain side as well. Because I think it was But so I wanted that for that because it was a bluesy song, you know. And I do quite. It's funny. Recently, people have been saying, "I didn't know you sang." I have this whole other catalog of like vocal songs. People just don't hear them that much, you know. But yeah, I do that too.
And no, that's a great sound. Now, one of the things I really like about that piece, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to go into the verse where you're singing a little bit, is your comping is interesting.
Oh, right. And by the way, live, that's different, completely different every time. Like what we do with that is, I mean, assuming I can remember the lyrics, which is always a question, the feel for those verses is different at every gig that the trio does.
Right.
You know, I mean, not dramatically,
but when you play chords, you syncopate it, so you're doing stuff around it. So yeah, that was like the front part.
Right.
But when you're singing, you would do like...
I'll do like the little licks around it, you mean?
Do that, but you also did chord things.
Right. Yeah, so
they're like stings. Like
yeah, like I'll do like those little walk-ups and things. Yeah, because I like jazz chords a lot, you know, and I find it's interesting to me, like, even in this song, I have a part, you know, and then on the turnaround, I have this chord. And you don't often get that in a blues song. So,
often don't get that at any song.
Right. Thankfully.
That's a cool song. It's a cool chord.
So that's... And then... That's the first time, then the second time... And that's just a turnaround chord, but I like the way it leads us back in, you know. So I try and put those in, just again, because it's an interesting harmony. I mean, I love bands like Steely Dan.
But you do a lot of rhythmical things.
I do,
and it's a comp style, and I think it's an interesting comp style because you're doing the fills,
right,
and those are cool in themselves. But you're doing these like rhythm fills.
Yeah, and that's kind of what my main Truefire courses are about. They're called Chord Navigator Cage Triads, and I do, you know, I do a lot of fills that are based around, you know, that kind of sound, you know, pulling out those jazzy little, you know, even just like if you're going to play a D minor, yes, you could play that, but why not play this? You know, why not stretch it a little bit, you know, because it's interesting, right? If you're going to play a D minor, what does D minor 9 sound like? Or D minor 11, you know? So I'm always trying to experiment with that. And often at that point, it's quite subconscious because it's like, because that was all tracked live, you know, so so it's just kind of coming out, you know, but yeah, you know, it's, I think rhythm playing is super important. And I think it's kind of, I talk about it a lot with my students. I think it's really overlooked.
Yeah, no, there's an art to it, and there's an art to do that kind of comping.
Right.
Because the only time I hear a lot of that style where you're rhythmically juxtaposing against the vocal is a lot of keyboard players do that.
Right.
They really do that.
They do. And, you know, it's very interesting. I have to approach my rhythm playing completely differently in Catatonic than I do in the trio for that very reason. Because I know I've got the space behind me in the trio.
Yeah.
And, you know,
just
so
you.
I can, you know, yeah. Plus, if I do more of that, I don't have to sing as much, you know.
No, it's great. It's good stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
I told you this would fly by. We're already out of time.
Okay.
So I just want to mention www.robgarland.net.
Yes.
Now, you were mentioning an upcoming gig for the trio.
Yes, Trio has a gig in Trip, Santa Monica, September 14th, which is a Saturday night. And we're going to play a 90-minute set at 10:30. And so that's Trip, Santa Monica on Lincoln. And then a week later, Catatonic are back at Vitello's again in Studio City. That is I might have to look what the date is on that one. That's a Wednesday. I believe it's the 20... hang on, let's see.
That's September too, right?
Yes, that's also September, yeah. So that is... That is too small. That is September 25th. Wednesday, September 25th, Catatonic are back at Vitello's at 8 o'clock. And then on October the 23rd, which is also a Wednesday, Catatonic are back at the Baked Potato, which playing there is, one of the big thrills of my lifetime because I'm quite obsessed with that place and the recordings and the music and the amazing musicians.
It's a great room. It's a great little room. Yeah. It's a funky little place, but it's great.
Yeah.
And then also give information for the different things that you're doing, the course, the videos, give all that.
Yeah, if you go to robgarland.net, all of the True Fire courses are on there. And I just released a new one a couple of weeks ago, which is called Take 5 Chord Tone Soloing, which is about using chord tones to solo. And there's my caged chords on there. And then I'm shooting some more in January. Basically, the website kind of leads you to everything. If you want to follow on Instagram or Facebook or all that fun stuff, you can get to it from the website.
Okay. So,
by the way, I also, for any, for guitar players listening, I send out a weekly free email with a new lesson every week. And if anyone wants to subscribe to that, again, they can do it from
the website.
Yeah.
Oh, very, very cool.
Yeah.
Very. You guys got to check that out. I want to thank you again. This is a great show. This is it was very interesting.
Thank you.
I'm going to take us out with another one from the Eclectic Trio called Lead Meat Bat.
Yeah, that was recorded live in Thousand Oaks, that one. So that's all live, no overdubs on that one.
Okay. Anything you want to say about it?
The Bogner was really loud. we put it in isolation.
So is that the Bogner in this guitar?
Yeah, and it was in an isolation cab.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was so loud. But yeah, we played that live, and I would have liked to have been able to do some overdubs and work on that one, but we were going for that kind of raw vibe. So
no, it works really well. Well, listen, I want to thank you again, and hopefully we'll have you back.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
I love the guitar. You can leave it with me. It's not a problem.
It hasn't been that much of a pleasure.
Go to the restroom, and I'll just take it and leave. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
So this is, I got to get this right, Lead Meat Bat, and this is the Eclectic Trio. This is a fun song. So everybody, thank you again. We'll see you next week. Have a good week, and here you go.